I can't tell you where we were. I can't tell you exactly what I did to get myself in trouble, but I can tell you I remember the moment that I was pulled in really close to Mom, and she whispered in my ear, "When I get you home." I knew in that moment, my behavior had to change immediately. And from that moment on, I can't tell you what happened when I got home, but I can tell you Nate was on his very best behavior. I was the sweetest, kindest child you could ever ask for. I was opening doors and saying yes ma'am and no ma'am. I was doing all of the proper things, all in hopes that mercy would be shown to my behind by the time that we got home, that Mom would somehow forget whispering that when she got me home, I was gonna find myself in trouble. Do you like discipline? I don't. It's not really a fun thing, but maybe our definition of discipline needs to be redefined. Maybe it's skewed, maybe it's off, and the way that we view discipline is something that we're gonna look at today, is something we should embrace into our lives. It's important, we're gonna look at it today. But before we do, I want to know how you're feeling. So down in the comments, I'm encouraging you, I want you to come tell me how you're feeling. Give me one word that describes how you feel right now in this moment. If this is your first time checking us out here at Home Church is a community of home-based churches that inspire leaders to gather their circle around them as they grow in their relationship with God and their relationship with each other. And I thank you. My name is Pastor Nate, and I just appreciate you being a part of this journey today. We're going to continue to unpack this series called Process as we look at the book of Exodus and all of the different actions, all of the different stories that grew not only the Hebrew people in their process of growing in God and growing in their relationship with Him and being set free from slavery, but also their leader Moses and the story of him growing in his own process as a leader and his ultimate decisions that kept him from walking in the full promise of God. And I appreciate you joining us. Today, we're going to look at Exodus chapter 19 to Exodus chapter 23. If you missed last week's message, make sure to check here. We dropped 2 videos looking at 2 different parts of the story last week. And we're going to look at a bunch more here today as we dive into Exodus 19 through 23. So let's jump into it. All right, for a couple parts of the story now, the Hebrew people have been set free. They are now walking through this journey. They've crossed over the Red Sea. They've worshiped God in this massive miracle of being set free from their slave owners. They've even grumbled and complained and just had all kinds of issues about not having enough food and not having enough water. And then they were tested and told directions of what God was going to do for them. And yet they still couldn't follow simple directions of don't pick up food on this day and eat all the food or throw it away on this day, and kind of having everybody come to him. And his father-in-law has dropped some knowledge about, listen, this isn't healthy for you. It's not healthy for them. You need to change some things. And so set up leaders. And now Moses is sharing the leadership. They've been through a battle. They've seen God not only deliver them from the Egyptians, but deliver them from another battle that happened right there in front of them as God brought them victory. And now they're stuck in this in-between place, this kind of next steps of like, what do we do now? And that is kind of the first point here. Before we can even get the next steps, you got to complete the first steps. I don't know about you, but I want the whole thing. I won't read the directions. I won't go through the directions. I need photos, and people are learning now. They just send you directions in photo step form. But like, I just need the directions there. I may not read them. I may not go after them. I may go and make my own mistakes, but I want the steps there. And even in my journey coming here to New Orleans, my whole family, we wanted all of the steps. We wanted God to send us an email, a text message, a voicemail. I'd have taken pigeons in the sky, anything to just help tell us these are the following steps that you're going to need. And he never did that. He just said, here, do that step. When you do that step, then I'll come through with the next step. And then when you do that step, I'll do the next step. Some things that hold us back in life is we're waiting for all of the steps. We're waiting for it all to come together. Right? Things happen. We adjust and we move into things that are uncomfortable. Often we can't figure out all of the steps. We just need the next step. It's because I love control. I want to be in control all the time. I want to have full control of all of the situation. I want to know what's happening, when it's going to happen, what I'm supposed to do, and not having all of the steps means that I'm not in control. And that is what a life as a Christian, a life in God is all about. It's about having faith in Him. And faith is having no idea of what's next, just knowing that He's got you. Yes, you do your part. Yes, you plan, you save, you get wisdom, you ask advice, you make smart decisions, You lean into the Spirit of God that's inside of you. All of those things are completely true, but there is always going to be a piece that you have to step that next step, not seeing a mile down the road, not seeing around the corner, just the next step as he lights up our path. And that's what's happening here to the Hebrew people. God tells Moses, listen, come here. I want you to come see Moses. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you this story, and I want you to go and to tell them, listen, you've seen what I did for you. I delivered you from Egypt, and since I delivered you from Egypt, and I fed you in the desert, and I gave you water, and I gave you victory over all these things, I want you to know that if you listen to me, Moses, tell them this again. I told them this when I fed them manna, and they didn't listen. So I want you to please, one more time, go tell them, Moses, if they listen to me, I will protect them. I will not only protect them, but I will guide them. I will set an angel over them. I will give them everything that they need as they walk into their promise and into their purpose, into their perfect life. They have to listen to me. They got to listen and obey my voice because I'm trying to help. I'm trying to guide them and protect them and help them, tell them to listen. And then here we see this idea of discipline. Discipline is not something that is super comfortable to embrace. It is not super comfortable to lean into. It is confusing and hard, and like it often doesn't resonate with every single one of us. And those of us that it do, it's usually because, well, it's because we're used to being disciplined. We're used to leaning into it. And after you kind of lean into it enough, you become comfortable in that area, in that space. But most of us try to avoid discipline. We don't want to be disciplined. And God right here is telling the people, like, I'm trying to discipline you. If you just listen and obey my voice, it's not that I don't want you to have freedom. It's not that I don't want you to have choice and I don't want you to live a free life, but my disciplines are going to protect you and give you all of the answers to the problems that are going to come after you. And then he tells Moses, hey, I want you to do this. I'm going to help give them some things that are going to help guide their behaviors, guide their decisions. So I want you to go sanctify them. I want you to go complete these steps with them, but then I want you to set some guards. I want you to put some guards around this mountain. I'm going to call you up. I'm going to speak to you out of this cloud. I'm going to speak to you out of this thunder and this lightning. They're going to know that I am God, that I am real, and you are my guy that I am speaking to guide them and to help them. But you go tell them, don't come past these guards. Don't step past and touch this mountain, because if they do, they're going to die. They're not going to die out of like punishment of like, you broke this rule, now you die. They're going to die because they can't handle all of who I am. And if they come too close, it's going to kill them. Set up guards, tell them to stay away. And they're going to experience, it takes discipline, it takes guides and guards. We don't view these as like rules and these things that are restrictions and these things that are keeping us from living this like fulfilled life. No, it is the guards, it is the guides that keep me safe. It focuses my energy, and that's what God's trying to do here. He's trying to give them all of the things that they need to live a disciplined life. Having disciplines in my life keeps me more healthy. I don't know if that's how you say it. That's how I'm saying it today. It keeps me healthier so I can be on this planet, but discipline is hard. But I do think that even I have a skewed definition of what discipline really, truly means and the power that I need to lean into and embrace. So God gives these very clear directions to Moses so that they know that he is God, there is a leader, and he is going to guide them, protect them, and make them his people if they're willing to listen. God not only gives Moses all of the details about how to keep the people safe, but he also tests Moses. Because later he tells them to come closer, and Moses is like, wait a second. You told me to set up guards to not let the people come close. Even God was testing his own leader to make sure, are you listening? And then God drops the 10 Commandments, and he not only drops the 10 Commandments, but he drops things that they need to use for their behavior around justice, their behavior around conflict, their behavior around how to handle all of these issues that either are going to come up as they continue to grow and live, or maybe even things that they were dealing with back in Egypt. All of the guides, all of the things that they're going to need to live a successful, healthy, happy, fulfilled, purposeful life are all found right here amongst these commands. And I grew up looking at these as the 10 rules. Don't do these things. And there's actually way more than that. There's a whole slew of them, 55 plus more. I think by the time it was over, that rule book was like up over 600 different things that they should or shouldn't do or could or couldn't eat or how to handle this or that situation. And they weren't rules to keep them from handling a tough life or not living a perfect life or being like held back from some good thing. Instead, these were the things that were going to handle the disputes, that were going to handle the issues that were still to come for them. They were the answers to the problems that they were going to face. They're right there in front of them. That's me over and over. The answers are right there in front of me. This idea that discipline or rules that restrict me is completely wrong. Discipline instead is this idea of studying, training, applying all of these standards that give me a good life. They're not obedience. They're not punishment. They're not these terrible restrictive things. Instead, these are these boundaries that keep me safe and that make me my most fulfilled self, so that I can be the best version of myself. That is why these restrictions are there. It's simple concept of a river. If a river had no boundaries, if it had no banks, the mighty Mississippi that runs right through this amazing city that we live in, it would just be a complete swamp, a massive puddle that didn't have these banks. It's the banks that allow the mighty Mississippi to run. It is these restrictions, it is these boundaries in our lives that keep us safe, drive our purpose, drive our focus and our energies to be the best version of ourselves. The most disciplined people are the people that are most successful in life, either physically with their body, the best athletes, the premier athletes, the people who do the most amazing things with their body are people that are super disciplined in their diet, super disciplined in their exercise, super disciplined in their focus. The people who are most successful with maybe being wealthy or at business or maybe doing something spectacular with their lives takes immense focus and discipline in their lives to focus their energy to pull the best things out of them. That is what discipline is here. And that's what God's doing with these 10 commandments, with these, hey, when this injustice happens, when this murder happens, when this accident happens, this is what you do. This is how you handle this situation. He was trying to help them be the best versions of themselves that they possibly could be. Discipline helps you become a healthier version of you, a wiser version of you, a better version of you, a version that has the healthiest relationships. I love what the Bible says here in 1 Corinthians. I discipline my body, Paul says, and I keep it under control. At least preaching to others, I disqualify myself. I got to discipline my body. I got to discipline my mind. I got to discipline my focus. I got to make sure that I have these disciplines and I'm sticking to them. Proverbs is full of great disciplines, great wisdom. He says, a man without self-control is like a city that's broken into and left without walls. There's no protection. There's nothing there to keep it safe. There's nothing there to keep the values safe, to keep the valuable items, the valuable relationships, the valuable people. Nothing is, if a city has no walls, there's nothing there to keep it safe. And if we have no self-control, there's nothing there to keep us safe. We're vulnerable. We're open for attack. We're open to be the least versions of who we really truly could be. And then there is the other definition of discipline. Controlled behavior that's resulting usually from discipline in some area of life. And that one I'm really super familiar with. I mean, if you grow up with a single mom as a teenager, you're going to make a lot of crazy mistakes. You do a lot of crazy things. And well, discipline was always there to keep me on the straight and the narrow. And God begins after giving the 10 commandments, after helping give a lot of, if this happens, do this. If that happens, do this. This is the right way to handle this situation. He says in Exodus chapter 21, if you strike someone and that person dies, then you got to put that person to death. But if they didn't think about it, if they weren't trying to kill someone, if they weren't trying to hurt them, and this is like an accident, well then you got to go do this other thing over here. If some reason you plot murder, if some reason somebody cunningly attacks and sneaks, then you got to put that person to death. There's this idea that there are repercussions for your actions. There's this discipline that comes to us. And when I know, if I do this, this is going to happen, then it curves my behavior. When Nate quickly learned that if you give your mom a smart mouth and a bad attitude, it might result in some kind of physical punishment. I know that isn't super culturally relevant anymore. I get it, but I grew up in a different term. A lot of us all did, but I learned very quickly, if you want to keep your face and your butt from being red, then you better watch how you talk to your mom. It curved my behavior. It curved my thoughts. It curved the way that I reacted in specific situations. And God's telling his people right here, hey, if you go and you murder somebody, if you hurt somebody, if you premeditate these things, this is what's going to happen to you, all in hopes that it would curve their behavior, from servants to injuries to even like moral issues and poverty and like ceremonial things that they needed to have in their lives. He was giving them discipline in order that they would curve their behavior. They would change their thought process. They would change the way they acted amongst each other and with each other. You see, discipline is not something that someone else gives me. It's actually something I can give myself. Now, I can receive instruction and guidance and sometimes even physical things from outside external forces, but the discipline part of it actually comes from an internal choice. Discipline is a choice that you make. This is the connection between the discipline that a lot of us think about and know about when we hear that word, and the discipline of a good athlete and someone who makes good decisions and hard decisions with their bodies to be successful, or maybe with their minds or with their degrees, their education, whatever it is, that idea of discipline. This is the connection point. It is an internal decision that you and I can make all by ourselves. Paul even says this in Hebrews, for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but it later yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who are trained by it. It doesn't feel good in the moment, but this is going to give you good things if you embrace it. You got to lean into discipline. And this whole like 4 or 5 or 6 chapters, I don't know, I'm not great at math, but these whole 4 or 5, 6 chapters, whatever it is all about disciplines for the people. God was trying to help them live a disciplined life so that they would truly represent who he is, truly walk in a life full of God, a life full of purpose and fulfillment, a life that was perfect for them. They would just embrace disciplines in their life. And then Exodus chapter 23 tells us all why these are important. He says, if you listen to all of this, if you lean in to these disciplines that I'm trying to give you, these guidance, these instructions, if you'll just listen to them and obey them, I will protect you. God then promises that he will set an angel over them, that this angel would go before them, protecting them and making their way easier if they will just be disciplined. They will be a disciplined people that will lean in to the teachings that God was giving them. If these people, these disciples, would respond to the discipline that God was giving them, and they would receive protection. And often when we hear the word disciple, we want to be followers of Christ. We think of followers when we think of disciples of God. But that word actually doesn't mean follower. It means student. It comes from a Latin word that literally means student, to learn, to live a life as one who studies, to literally receive instruction and training. That's what it means to be a disciple. If we're going to be disciples of Jesus Christ, we're going to truly represent who he is and lean in to everything that he has for me, then it's going to come with being a learner, being someone who's always leaning in to the hard decisions in life, making the tough choices for myself, for my family, for my career, for my spirituality, because it costs you something. To be a follower of him costs me something. I have to deny myself maybe entertainment. I have to maybe deny myself something I really want or something that feels really good, to have prayer time, to have worship time, to go to church, to study, to read, to have conversations, to grow. It costs me something to have relationships. I've got to be willing to spend my time, to spend my energy. I often challenge people, challenge myself. If you're going to have good relationships, it should cost you money. You should be doing things for people. You should be blessing people. You should be finding ways to connect with people. It should cost you something. Everything costs us something. And to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, it costs us discipline. We must be willing to embrace discipline in our lives. And that is what all of these chapters are. It's not sexy. It's not fun. It probably doesn't even preach very well, but it is so super important that discipline is part of being a Christian. That if we're going to walk in him, then we must be a disciplined Christian, which means we are a learning Christian. 2 more scriptures as we wrap up. Proverbs 3:11 and 12 says, my son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves those that he loves, the father of the son whom he delights. He loves you. That's why he's giving you these guides. That's why he's giving you the answers to the problem. He knows what's coming. He sees what's in front of you, and he's giving you the solutions. He's not keeping you from something. He's protecting you from something. And in 2 Timothy, Paul says to Timothy, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and of love, of self-control. He actually gives you the strength to make the right decisions if you're willing to lean into it, to embrace it, to be a learner every single day. Because when I become a learner, the student becomes the teacher who's still learning, but also teaching others. And then we learn together. We grow together as a community. Even the disciples, the learners, the people who were with Jesus Christ, these were just like common everyday people. These were fishermen, these were tax collectors, but they were just common. These weren't religious scholars. These weren't people who went and studied the scriptures their entire lives. These are regular, everyday men, and yet God used them because they were willing to learn. They were willing to put themselves out there. They were willing to grow in their faith. They were willing to become learners. And those learners who learned from Jesus Christ's teaching, they later became the teachers who continued to learn and embrace the new things that Jesus was doing. Restrictions actually give freedom and strength. And the most fulfilled life is one that is based in learning, practicing disciplines as we lean into it. And God stretches us and grows us. I hope that encourages you. I know it's not the sexiest thing in the whole world, right? It doesn't get you super duper excited. It's not like blessing your finances, but it will if you're disciplined. It isn't like growing all kinds of things. Even Paul, remember, says it doesn't feel good in the moment, but if you do it, I promise you, it will change your walk with God. It will change your purposes. These are one of those principles that I think if you never identify Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, if you never become a Christian, if you think I am some kind of religious zealot, crazy man who doesn't know what he's talking about, you could probably debate me under the table. But if you practice discipline, you will reap the benefits. It is one of those laws that God has put in place in our universe that just works in relationships, in life, in spirituality. Disciplines pay off in the long run. Christianity is all about disciplines and becoming a learner, living a life of learning constant. Thanks for hanging out with me. Catch up with the series that we're currently in called Process by clicking one of the videos that are going to come up right here at the end. Homechurch217.com. There you can see our values. You can hear our story of how my wife and I came to this city and how Home Church kind of came to be birthed and how God is kind of doing this new thing with us. And you can hear what's important, what to expect, and where you can come and actually hang out with us at one of our Home Church meetings here in our home in Destrehan. God's just doing some super cool things that were just like completely unplanned for, not what we expected, and they are super cool. We're having a blast, and we'd love for you to come be a part of it. Home Church 217, anywhere that you download apps, there you can see our latest media. You can see where to meet with us. There's a Bible app in there. There's a note-taking app in there. You can even have in-app messaging, so you can reach out to people and say, I'm new here, or I'm checking this out, or hey, maybe you're not from New Orleans, but you're looking about how to get involved and how to get connected. There we can walk you step by step and make sure that we're meeting every single one of your needs. And then finally, right here on YouTube, Home Church 217. Of course, you know that you're watching this video here, hopefully on YouTube. Maybe you're watching it on Facebook or our app, but we are on YouTube, Home Church 217. Just hit the subscribe button. Do us a favor, hit the like button. It helps us a ton. We want to talk with you in the comments. Come leave your comments. What are you still chewing on? Where do you struggle with discipline? Where do you embrace discipline? Let's talk this out. Let's walk this out as we both stretch and grow and get closer to God and hopefully closer to each other as we walk this out. I love you. I can't wait to continue to unpack, to walk through Exodus. So come along this journey, hit the subscribe button, be a part of the family here. Till the next time I get to see you, God bless.
Yeah.
Smash that like and subscribe.